Literally. In a land of likes, leggings, and lattes comes a podcast hosted by two basic beings, Becca and Maddie. This is the Basic Bee Podcast.
Let's get into it.
That was a different way to start it, but
Yes.
I like it.
Well, thank you. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, we have a very special guest. His name is Caleb.
You don't know my last name, do you?
I wasn't going to say your last name, but actually it's right here. His name is Caleb Caudell. I did know his last name. And he is a friend of mine. We met at Bova Conti where I work. You're an English major, right? What was your major?
My major was comparative literature. I usually tell people English just because it sounds
It's
more
simple.
basic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not many questions get asked.
Fewer questions.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm trying to avoid questions for the most part.
As
Okay.
you're on a podcast, we're about to ask you a bunch
Exactly,
of questions.
yeah.
Well, I was going to say English major, but then I thought you would silently judge me.
Yes, you would have been right about that. I would have done that.
Well, you do that to a lot of people.
Is it that palpable?
Only to me, because I feel like I might finally have a grasp on who you are.
That's right, because we've had several conversations.
Yes.
It takes time.
Yeah, we've worked together for several months. I was one of the first to buy his book, which we will talk about at the end of the episode.
That's true.
But, yeah, I just love your vibe.
And I appreciate that. I'm glad you love it. It's
He's-
not for everyone.
He's the best person to talk to during a boring shift or an exciting shift.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure a lady got mad because she thought that we were laughing at her, but I was just incessantly laughing at a joke that he told.
You're talking about the woman who just wanted water, who left in a huff.
Yes.
Yes.
But basically, I love talking to him, and he agreed to come on the podcast last minute, and I'm very thankful. So, it's your turn to talk.
Oh, my turn to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess we should get right into it and talk about our recent obsessions,
Okay.
because that's always a good place to start. Do you want me to get mine first?
Yeah, you go first. We'll go this way.
Okay. It's not anything new, so I'm going to give two. I'm so obsessed with Harry Potter. Almost done with the very last book. I've never read the series before. My first time reading it. And it's very interesting hearing, like, different perspectives on it. Because I guess everyone now hates the author, J.K. Rowling.
Oh, because
Yes.
she's transphobic or
Okay.
something?
Yeah, she's hateful, she's bigoted.
So,
she's-
yeah, I knew none of that. I feel like that was, like, for Harry Potter fans only.
Mhm.
And then, so I decided to read the books when I went to Universal last year. And then I got the books on my iPad that I got for Christmas. So I was like, I have to read these now. And I'm almost done. I've got 200 pages left. Because it's on my iPad and all the books are on there. So it's like 2,800 pages. I'm like at 2,600 out of 2,800. So I'm almost there. And then my other obsession is a snack. And that snack is cotton candy grapes. Have
Why
you
are
ever
they
had them?
Well,
They taste like cotton candy,
But they're grapes.
but they're grapes.
Mhm.
Does it really taste like cotton candy?
It does. I would give you some, but I ate them all.
Are they healthy?
They're healthier than maybe a bag of chips, but as opposed to regular grapes, not as healthy.
Is it
Okay.
candy or still grapes?
It's straight, like, they're green grapes, and I get them at Kroger, and it's like pink, and it says cotton candy grapes, and
Yeah.
They
they're
just
so
did
delicious.
that for marketing.
But they taste like cotton candy.
But that was a
They're so
stroke
good.
of marketing
I know.
genius. That's some great copywriting
Somebody
right there.
said, hey, what if we put cotton candy
Yeah.
on
I know.
Mm.
Well, it worked.
That's
It
gonna
sold
grab
me,
It's
and
right, they got you.
yeah, I love them. So, and I was like, well, at least it's better than I was recently obsessed with Ruffle chips and sour cream and onion dip.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
I
yeah.
was eating it too
That's
much.
a step up.
That
I
is.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my obsession.
So I guess I'm curious, what's your literary opinion on Harry Potter?
Oh, that's true.
I have never read Harry Potter.
Okay.
Even though I guess...
You hate it.
Maybe I do, but only
Yeah.
in an ignorant way.
Mhm.
The best way to hate something, I think, is from a distance, not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know when those books came out. I think they were vaguely contemporaneous
Mhm.
with my own life.
Yeah.
But I can't say that for sure. I think most kids my age were reading it, but I've always been pretty aloof from what is current. in many ways. I think from the few glimpses I've gotten into it, that the style is pretty subpar. I don't think
it's nothing special.
No, I don't think anybody thinks of J.K. Rowling as a
genius.
No, not on the level of prose or anything. I mean, maybe as a storyteller, she's got some kind of talent.
Yeah,
but
it was something where, like, I've never enjoyed reading until, like, maybe a couple years ago I got into it. So I was kind of like, I want to see what the hype is about.
Yeah.
And my brother, he read the books, and then he's, like, a couple years younger than me. And then I'd go to the movies with him when they release them because he'd want to go see them. So, like, I only knew it from the movie standpoint, and the books help out a lot because I was not a fan of the movies as much.
Yeah.
But the
Have
books
you seen
I like.
those?
I haven't seen any
Okay.
of the movies, no.
I've seen one.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not very hooked on it.
I feel like it's I like the community. Like, me and my friend, she read the books. Shout out to you, Lindsay. She read the books, and so we talk about it because I'm like, what does this mean? I'm so confused. And she always clears it up. But yeah, apparently the more times you read it, the more it makes sense. But I'm like, I think I'm just going to be the one time through and be done.
Yeah, I guess it's a subject for conversation that I can never participate in.
Yeah.
And I've also noticed a little bit, not that I have spent too much time doing this sort of thing, but in my limited experience with online dating or dating apps, I run into this frequently. Women very proudly display their affiliation with some school.
Oh, like
or,
they write if they're
Hogwarts.
Gryffindor.
Yes. So,
they're
yeah.
Gryffindor house, like Gryffindor, Hufflepuff.
I don't know much about it,
Ravenclaw.
but I keep seeing some variation on I'm of this school or I'm a Huffledore or
If you,
a Griffin Puff or
at least you got the
I'm
first part
a
right.
Grimace. Yeah,
I'm a Grimace.
Their favorite McDonald's mascot.
Well, you're really smart, so you need if a girl has a Ravenclaw, that's probably good for you.
That's gonna be good.
They're the wise ones.
I see. Well, to
I'm
be
a
frank,
Slytherin.
the whole thing is a pretty big turnoff for me. But so if I see anything like that, I'm immediately discouraged from doing anything about it.
When I think of a Harry Potter, that sounded wrong.
When I think of a Harry Potter, it's a man who pots who's very hairy.
When I think of a Harry Potter community, I just picture a bunch of nerds.
Yeah,
Like
and
band,
not even cool nerds.
Like band kids.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Very much so.
There's a difference.
Like
There's
jazz band.
people that have grown up and grown out of it who maybe like to go to Universal every now and again.
Yeah.
And like be a kid for a day. Then there are the people who participate in Quidditch and run around in a field with brooms.
Yeah.
There's different levels.
There are degrees, sure. But even there, I just think it's okay to have this attachment to early experiences. You know, if you read Harry Potter when you were a kid, it's okay. You don't have to disown that. But to still be that invested in it to where it's one of the first things you need to tell someone, where it's not like, have we grown at all?
Yeah.
It's that, like, maybe
it probably is like a signal like this person might be a little immature.
Yes. And if we got there, if it was like the fifth date and we eventually got to, when I was a kid, I loved Harry Potter, I'd be like, okay, that sounds normal. But if that's the first thing I know about you,
like
that's
it's like the
very
first question she asks you is what Hogwarts house are
yeah,
you?
I'm already gone. The like the tires are squealing in the drive. Yeah. Gravel's flying. Yeah, I'm out of there.
So I know it's your turn, but I want to ask real quick, what do you think of Twilight?
Also, okay.
It's the same thing.
It's the same basic thing, right? And then Twilight has nothing. What is fan fiction of something, isn't it? Or no, 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction.
Yes.
Okay, so that's even farther downstream from that.
Yeah. So
it's all like a continuous phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, Twilight. I watched like a TikTok and someone said like Twilight came to her in a dream or something, and then she wrote the book within 3 months.
I bet it was a dream, a real steamy dream.
Probably.
With werewolves.
And then she wrote the books. But
in like a week.
Yeah, and then she wrote them really fast, and then like years later it was like a different series that was based off Twilight, and then that different series was like what helped 50 Shades, so it's kind of like you said, a stream. It's like 3 removed from Twilight.
Yes. Twilight is werewolves and vampires and teen romance, right? But the vampire is eternal, but he assumes the form of a hot teen.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He glitters.
He was a hot teen when he got converted to being a vampire.
So he's stuck like that.
Yeah.
So it's really...
He doesn't age.
It's pivotal when you get bitten on the neck. You want it to happen when you're really hot.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. You have to do it the right day.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to have a
but
good hair
I think
day.
that does work out because that's mostly who the vampire wants to bite is someone who's hot.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the natural attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
we
yeah.
we gotta move on.
Okay.
Okay, my recent obsession was a movie that I saw, which was my first movie I saw in Indiana because of, the pandemic. And it was the M. Night
Shamalanga Ding Dong.
That one. I don't know how to say his name, but he makes, what are other movies he's made?
Is there a movie called The Village?
Yeah, The Village is one of the best
And
known.
then Sixth Sense?
Yes, that was his too.
That
I
was
forgot.
the breakout one.
Yes.
Mm.
So he's still popping them out. But this one was a newer one. It was called Old. I went with my mom
Oh.
and I saw it in the theater. And it didn't get very good reviews, but I really enjoyed it. It's basically this family gets sent on a free vacation and they get stuck on this beach and they all start aging rapidly. And like the grandma dies right away, the dog dies, and
Aw.
basically it was just a really good twist at the end and I really enjoyed it.
Don't you grow like a year every 30 minutes or something crazy?
Yeah, it was something like that. So they had 2 whole days to live their entire life. But
That's rapid.
I really liked that movie. And then the other obsession I had was I went to the state fair and saw Noah Cyrus, Miley Cyrus's little sister. She sang, and it was just really good. She sounded a lot like Miley, but without the heavy marijuana. And
Do you sound like heavy marijuana?
Well-
There's a sound of heavy marijuana. Yeah.
Miley's vocal cords are so strained that she sounds like a smoker Barb.
Oh, okay.
But
So
I
she just
still
said-
love her. But anyway, I just really enjoyed it, and her music's really good.
Cool. What's your recent obsession, Caleb?
My recent obsession, I haven't looked into this. I started to talk about this earlier. The dead internet theory. The idea being that almost no one is on the internet. Most of what you encounter that seems to be people is just scripts. It's programs. It's AI. It's a spam.
Interesting.
And really, if you think about what you're actually experiencing, I don't know, maybe this is different for other people, but supposedly everyone's on the internet all the time, right? And so you seemingly have access to anyone at all times. But it's very similar to real life in that you are mostly interacting with about the same 10 or 15 people. Like, who comes to the surface is mostly the same number of people that you could juggle in your real life. And so that illusion of mass is just coming from programs, from programming. And so the internet is mostly vacant as far as what you can actually experience. Like, technically, yes, everyone is on, but we're all sequestered. We're all siloed. So you're not interacting with very many people.
How did you find that out? Or, like, how did you...
Probably through a program. Probably by...
You were probably Googling.
Reddit?
I was on a message board, not Reddit,
No.
on a message board that I will not disclose.
Okay.
Which is
you were
probably
interacting with...
Mostly
bots.
people, yes, who are not real, yeah. Figments of my imagination.
But that theory was made by a bot.
Probably, yes.
Wow.
That's very possible. I don't know how many people are real on the internet, but now I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm thinking, these probably aren't real people.
Yeah.
And if you think also, like, my Twitter account, I don't have that many followers. And it's all relative, but let's say I have 700 followers. 700 people, that's already a number that you can't really hold in your head. You can't think of 700 people at once. And anything I post on there, on any given day, okay, I understand not everyone's going to respond to everything. But typically, I'm only going to get 10 people involved. Maybe 20, maybe 50, if it really hits. Even like 100, but still out of 700... where is everyone?
That's a good point.
True.
Yeah, even on Instagram, it's like we just hit 200 followers with our Basic B Instagram, and we'll get maybe 40 likes on a good day.
Yes. And at the very least, even if you don't take it literally, it's a nice figurative description of how this very hot term, engagement, like responding or interacting with people, how scaled down that is in reality from the idea of it. You're always seeking these numbers. You want to pump your numbers up. You want thousands and thousands of followers, thousands of likes then, but you're only getting a fraction of the interactions of what your follower count would suggest. So like, even if those all are real people, in a certain sense, they are dead to you. They're not, they're just, it's an empty signifier. It doesn't actually mean anything. Or it only means something insofar as like, yes, to get 100 likes, you need 10,000 followers reliably. To get 1,000 likes, you need like 50,000.
Dang.
So mostly you're not encountering all the people that you think you should have access to.
Yeah.
So it's mostly a dead zone.
And like you said, where's everybody at?
Where are they? Yeah.
Interesting.
That was a good obsession.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any others?
That's all I want to talk about for now.
Well, we also ask all of our guests, what's the most basic thing about you?
The most basic thing about me right now is that I work in 2 separate places, a coffee shop and then a Thai restaurant they both have neon signs inside of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is a real fly trap. It definitely attracts a lot of pictures.
Oh.
And one of them is the cafe that we work at. So that's
Yes.
pretty basic.
yeah.
Mhm. It is an extremely basic cafe.
Yeah, but I like it.
You would.
You would.
That's why I'm a
But it's-
basic bee.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you have the Basic Bee podcast.
All right. So, we have to ask you another question. What is your go-to coffee order?
My go-to coffee order, this is why I shouldn't be working in coffee shops, because I drink espresso.
That's
And
it.
people I really do drink that.
Yes, you do. I've witnessed it, and I'm like, you
It-
should make something with that.
And I mostly don't.
Mm-hmm.
But then people want to know, of course, what do you like? But they don't want to know what I really like,
Yeah.
because that's no fun for them.
Do you just like espresso, or you just want it to do the job?
I just want it to do the job.
You don't
I'm
like
beyond
the taste?
caring. Sometimes espresso can be made well. It's still an acquired taste. It's still something a little bit specialized as far as coming to appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And when espresso is made well, I do like it. Of course, it's not gonna hit you the same way as a syrupy latte. It's not gonna titillate you. It's not gonna light up your
Titillate.
receptors. It's not gonna be like ping, like dinging all the dopamine.
Do you know what titillate means?
I've heard the word before. I feel like I know the general context of it. Now, if you asked for a dictionary definition, no.
Let's hear what you think.
I think titillate, doesn't that mean like grab your attention?
Like
tickle
exciting.
you?
It's
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say grab your titties.
It tickles your tits. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it means.
Yes.
No.
Grabbing tits could titillate you.
It could. You could be titillated by a tit twister.
Okay.
Like a tongue twister.
So, I guess something that we wanted to talk about is Caleb had a surgery that not many have had. At least that I think. I don't really know the stats on it. Do you?
Well, not exactly. And certainly far fewer younger men than older men. It is more common than you might think among older men. Still pretty rare. Certainly not often discussed.
Is it a heart surgery?
It is not a heart surgery.
The next best organ.
Yes. The next most important. Certainly more important than the brain.
Heart, this, brain.
Yes.
All right, let's hear about it.
Now, first of all, I just want to make sure, what kind of language can I use? Should I stay anatomical? Can I be...
I feel like you should be just direct.
Okay.
Explain it like you were explaining it to your friend, right?
Right, like how you told me.
So I can be colloquial. I can be casual.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to probably use some somewhat medical terminology.
That's fine.
Just because for some of this, there's no way around it. But yeah, when possible, I'll be casual.
Our viewers can work with the bots on the
Yes.
internet to
Your
Google
bots-
things they don't know.
Or your bot listeners can, they'll
That's
know.
true. There you go.
Yes. I have a penile implant,
Okay.
also known as a penile prosthesis. So I have material inside my body. I am not 100% organic. And no one actually is. Everyone has plastic in them right now. But I have more plastic than probably the average person.
Okay.
So how did you discover the need for this surgery?
I discovered the need for the surgery through over a decade of excruciating experiences trying to have sex as people, I assume, normally do. I was born, I believe, unless I am repressing some kind of traumatic accident at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
I believe I was born with a very rare condition that prevents me from being able to sustain erections naturally.
Okay.
I didn't know this. No one really, I had sex education, but there's still a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you hear some about how you're supposed to function, but I'm still off in my own world. I've got my own body. I'm not really talking to anybody.
I mean, how many people are listening to that part of sex education?
And also, yeah,
class,
you're really not. You're not tuning into it anyway.
No.
No, you're making fun of it, or
Yeah.
you're talking to your friends, or doing all kinds of other zany things. But looking back on it, I can tell that I would experience the physiological signs of arousal, but then I would lose it almost immediately, and I didn't know that was not normal.
You're
And
like, am I not doing this right or something?
Well, I wouldn't even really get that far, because I just knew how I was, and I wasn't comparing notes or anything.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just was
You didn't know any
frustrating.
different.
No, I didn't know it. I didn't know what anyone was doing. Even though I was pretty aloof, I think, by nature, maybe more than the average person. Like, I remember hearing things that other boys would talk about, you know, even like by the time I'm 14 or 15 or something. I would hear what they were talking about, and it would register on some level, but I don't know, something about it I wouldn't fully process, or I wouldn't internalize it in a way, and I wouldn't think, wait a minute, that's not happening to me.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know, I was just kind of spacey, I think. I read a lot of books. I had a different thing going on. But it wasn't really until, and I didn't have a girlfriend either. My early experiences, even going through puberty, I was very interested in girls. I thought they were beautiful. It was this, magical unfolding of desire and this feeling of romance, but I wasn't cool, and I didn't.
Yeah.
I was.
You were reading books.
I was reading books, but also I was
but
actually
not Harry Potter.
Not Harry Potter. No, I became very good friends with a lot of girls, and
Yeah.
I was the kind of guy who didn't understand that I was sensitive and shy, and I would become friends with girls, and I would think like, well, they'll just tell me when they want to do something. That's not how it works
Kept
at all.
getting friend zoned.
Yes, friend zone, but that term is a little, I hesitate to use it, because it's not like, I liked being friends with them too. It wasn't like I was just this frustrated, it's not like I was a bitter person or anything, but I still had misconceptions. I still thought, well, we're friends, eventually she'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't have that aggressive nature.
Yeah.
And no one ever told me, too. That's the thing. The funny thing about when I grew up, and I think the way that feminist-oriented education, the way it works, what it does almost, is that it creates an even bigger divide between more sensitive men, more naturally sensitive men really take that messaging to heart, and all they hear is, oh, men are predators, men are abusers, men are too aggressive, they need to get in touch with their feminine side, so they really internalize that and think like, oh, I don't want to put any pressure on anyone. But then the guys who are just assholes, they're ignoring that anyway.
Yeah.
So then it almost makes it even, it polarizes the field even more, where it makes things even more selective, to where guys who are already naturally aggressive get even more, they're able to capitalize even more on the fact they don't give a fuck. And then there are more guys who are actually thinking way too much about things that are probably undermining them or limiting their progress.
Yeah.
So I was probably in that camp.
Okay.
And so I didn't have any sexual experience with women until I was 18.
Okay. So you were just kind of quiet in high school, and
Quiet,
once again
had
didn't
friends,
realize anything.
Didn't realize it, and then had my first girlfriend at 18, and then we started doing things. And that's when it really starts to become clear, this is probably... Because I guess on some level I was always thinking, I knew something was going on with me even when I was alone, but I was thinking, if I'm with a woman, surely...
That would work.
Yes, things will be a little different. And then things were not different.
Yeah.
And I went to my parents. I tried to talk to them about it. I went to see a urologist. When I was 18, the urologists I went to, they weren't specialized urologists. That's another thing. Even a urologist is already a specialized doctor, but it gets more specialized from there. There are urologists who specialize in sexual medicine. But that's not every urologist. A lot of them are just there to shove a finger up your ass when you're 50 and tickle your prostate and see if it's overgrown. Yeah. So when I went to those urologists, they told me, without really wanting to know exactly what I was going through, that I had performance anxiety, which was dismissive.
Yeah.
And actually made me feel crazy. Because then I thought, well, yeah, I must be insane. Because there should be nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It's like what doctors do with fat people. It's like they blame every symptom on you being fat when there's a lot of times something else.
Mm-hmm.
They do this in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And I'm sure women have their own version of this too, where they've got certain symptoms, they have complaints, they know what's happening inside their body, they try to explain it, and doctors classify it incorrectly, they misdiagnose, they lead people astray.
Yeah.
So I was very much shut down by those early experiences going to a doctor. And I tried all the pills, like what was really popular at the time, especially in Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. These are what is called PDE5 inhibitors. So what it's supposed to do is like block something that constricts blood vessels, creating the effect of widening your blood vessels. The idea being that you need more blood flow. But that wasn't really ever the issue. So all that really did was, it actually didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Except give me like headaches and like tinnitus. Like there are a lot of side effects associated with like headaches, ringing of the ears.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Because actually like Viagra was initially developed as a heart medication.
Oh.
Yeah, because there is an intimate link between heart health and erectile functioning. Because typically when you're dealing with old men who have issues there, it's because they were healthy or they did have normal functioning. Their heart starts to degrade, their arteries harden, they become sclerotic, then they're not getting as much blood flow, then they're having issues. That was never the problem with me. It was a lifelong thing. It took me a long time to realize there is a condition, it's very rare, it affects, like, it's thought to affect about 1% to 2% of men.
Wow.
Genetically. It has nothing to do with lifestyle factors. It's not, because really, for the most part, erectile dysfunction, I still like to call it impotence because like I prefer poetic terminology to medical terminology. Erectile dysfunction sounds more like a car, like something that happens to, and I like things that actually, even though I understand why they want to do that because it hurts more. It sounds more, but I like
something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I want to take it that way. I want to carry that burden almost, because I care about language in that way too. I want things to be descriptive and poetic and resonant. But mostly, impotence is something that occurs over time because of lifestyle issues. Because your diet's bad, you're sedentary, you're obese, you have arteriosclerosis or diabetes. Diabetes is correlated strongly with impotence. Nerve damage, because diabetes leads to nerve damage. You have neuropathy. There are problems with the signaling between the brain and other body parts. So those are always the assumptions. It's like if you come to a doctor and you say, I'm having trouble getting it up, they're like, okay, what's wrong with your heart? Do you have diabetes? With younger men now, there's another thing that has become a factor, and that's what they call like porn-induced ED, where supposedly so many young men, are watching so much porn that they are no longer aroused by actual women.
Wow.
Like, because they've rewired their brains to solely be aroused by images rather than, and not just images, but like fast flowing, quickly changing images. Because the way that, porn is not just porn. It's not just like, oh, well, we've always had it. There have always been tits on cave walls or something. Like there's a big difference between, tits on a cave wall, a pinup, a Playboy magazine, and then like being able to see thousands of splayed vaginas like in the span of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So supposedly a lot of men now are experiencing impotence because they're whacking off to way too much porn and then they don't know how to even be aroused anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's sad.
That is sad. But none of that was really going on with me. I did look at porn when I was younger, of course. I mean, I was exposed to it too early. But it really wasn't about that. Because I never really got addicted. I never felt addicted. I was never like watching it every single day. I wasn't masturbating that much. I think that probably does happen to some. But that wasn't the case for me. But anyway, there's like a condition affecting 1% to 2% of men genetically. And it has nothing to do with lifestyle factors. It's called congenital venous leak. So the way that an erection works is that you need two parts to be working. You need blood flowing in, but then you also need that blood to be trapped. And the way the blood is trapped is through veins. It's like veins regulate outflow. Arteries deal with inflow.
Okay.
So you've got your arteries, which send blood in, and then veins, which either trap or send blood back.
Gotcha.
And if the veins are malfunctioning, they don't trap blood.
Okay.
So just as a fluke of design, my venous system does not trap blood effectively.
So it goes there, but it doesn't stay.
It does not stay. So it doesn't matter how much I like amp up the ability to send blood in.
Yeah.
It's like trying to pump up a tire with air when it has a hole in it. Like if you pump as hard as you can kind of, you can make some progress as long as you're pumping.
Yeah.
But you're losing the battle pretty much all the time.
Huh. You just sounded like a doctor.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Well, probably had to learn about it.
I did some research.
So you kind of had to like discover
I had to learn this
yourself.
myself. I did have to discover this myself, and I did read PubMed articles because the doctors I went to were not telling me these things.
So, something that you already had told me was it's in your family.
I believe so, because finally, and this wasn't even among the first conversations I had, my mom had. My dad wasn't even the one to tell me this first. My mom had to tell me that my dad had dealt with this.
That is so... I feel like that's a job as a dad.
Well, you also have to understand, yes, there is a responsibility there, but then keep in mind, too, that we are not very far along, even in a social experiment, of equipping men with vocabulary or the emotional capacity to admit to things like this.
I was
Like,
gonna
even
say
what
it's
I'm
probably
doing
a
now,
pride thing.
it's a pride thing. Sure, I mean, there's shame, there's, an image to maintain, and even knowledge, too. And even what I'm doing now is something that I think is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Even now. But imagine, like, my dad grew up, not as that, I'm not trying to say that they were completely unenlightened times, but still, like, he grew up in a small town in the 60s.
And that's something you just don't talk about.
You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And no, I guarantee you he was not talking about that with anyone. And he
Yeah.
wasn't hearing about it from anyone.
But I feel like knowing that you have sons and it is probably a genetic thing, it's like, maybe when I have the talk with them, I should mention, hey, if something doesn't seem right, tell your mother or me.
Sure, yeah. There could have been more preparation. I could have been given a heads up.
Maybe he didn't know it was genetic. Did he?
He might not have. Because, again, there was a lack of information. Not much is known. I'm sure he was rushed along, because I know that he went to doctors, too.
Okay.
And a lot of the science and the medicine, the medical technology and the surgical technique behind this is pretty recent.
Okay.
It's not really, because Viagra came out in the mid-90s.
Wow.
Before that, you had pumps, like these primitive... I mean, mostly we associate penis pumps with like almost a comical sex toy. It's like this idea that you can somewhat pump up your penis to make it larger.
I didn't even know that was a
I've
thing.
never heard of that.
It's like an Austin Powers joke, like
Gotcha.
that movie. I don't know.
I've seen
That's
Austin
mostly the only knowledge most people have of it is through something like that, where it's like, oh, he gets caught with a penis pump, and it's like, oh, that's it's not mine, because the idea is just that, like, oh, that's an insecure man trying to pump up his dick or something.
I see.
Yeah, but it actually is a medical device for maintaining blood flow.
I see.
But that was like one of the first, most primitive attempts at counteracting impotence.
So you have the most modern.
I have the most advanced instrument, the most advanced technology and surgical technique and knowledge to fix this.
Can I see it?
No.
I'm kidding. Okay, so I guess you should explain how it works.
Yes, I will explain what it is and how it works. It is a 3-piece device. It is composed of 2 tubes, which go into... And I also have to explain a little bit of penile anatomy. The penis is made up of 3 chambers, primarily. There's the corpus cavernosa, and those are the 2... It's spongy tissue. Spongy tissue that then makes up the shaft. And it's 2 chambers. They're running side by side.
Okay.
Underneath that is the corpus spongiosum. And that's the urethra runs through that.
Sounds like Harry Potter.
Yeah, maybe I should have read.
Maybe you would have solved your problem much faster.
Mm-hmm. So it's like there are 3 erectile bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And in arousal, they're in a relaxed state normally. It's not muscle tissue. It's not the same kind of material. Spongy tissue, it's in a couple of other places. I think maybe, I forget exactly where. It's in a couple of other spots in your body. Mm-hmm. Nipples? Actually, that's it. That's another one. So the same tissue that is in the inside of the penis is also in your nipples. So think of the same process of how nipples harden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's the same tissue. It doesn't work in the exact same way, but it's very similar.
I've never had
They're soft. Of course not. as your shirt would suggest.
Yeah, I wore a Virginity Rocks shirt today to honor our conversation.
That's right.
Anyway.
Yes. So just as nipples are soft and then become hard, it's the same kind of tissue that is mostly soft or flaccid and then becomes tumescent, hard.
What is that tissue called again? I feel like I had to memorize it.
Well, it's spongy tissue, but maybe it's called something else?
I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So the device has 2 tubes that they don't fully replace that spongy tissue in the cavernosa, but they do fill up most of it. And the purpose of those tubes is to harden and simulate a physiological erection. Mm-hmm. So you got your 2 tubes, and those go into the shaft, and they run from the base all the way to close to the head, like into the head.
Okay.
To provide stability.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a pump. The pump then is connected to the tubes with smaller tubes, which is then connected to a pouch, a reservoir filled with saline, so salt water. And the mechanism works in this way. You've got a pouch filled with saline, and that is in my abdomen. That's like somewhat behind or adjacent to my bladder. There's quite a bit of space in the abdomen. There's enough space to place a device like this. With the tubes in the shaft, you have to make some space. Mm-hmm. It's a little traumatic. But you don't really have to make a lot of space for the reservoir. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to punch through the abdominal wall, but then there's space for it to sit. The reservoir is filled with saline. It's connected to the pump. The pump is located in the scrotum. So it's like between the testicles. Also, there's space in there. Mm-hmm. So I press on this pump. The pump activates the reservoir, which sends saline into the tubes, which then expand and become hard.
Gotcha.
So it is as close as you can get using a mechanical, artificial, external device that is implanted. It's as close as you can get to the actual process of an organic erection. Mm-hmm. Because you go from soft to hard.
Yeah.
The tubes they're not as soft. Mm-hmm. They're not like, there is material in there, which is not just tissue.
Yeah.
But it's not hard all the time.
Yeah.
But then when you press the pump, you send the saline in, the tubes expand and become very stiff. The tubes don't expand much in length. Mm-hmm. And one thing that is different about having this device is that you are all the time a little bit more stretched out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know this about penises, but they tend to...
I don't know any of
That's right, you don't know anything. There tends to be, this varies too a little bit, but there tends to be a pretty considerable difference between a flaccid and erect state as far as the size. Mm-hmm. Like, men tend to grow quite a bit when they become aroused and hard. And usually in length, especially, like, there's the term, like, the grower versus being a shower. Mm-hmm. Like, most men, I think, are growers, where, like, they're pretty small when they're soft, and then they grow more when they're hard. But when you have that material inside of you, you never really shrink down as much.
Yeah.
There's still a difference when you activate, but there's always a little bit more going on there.
Wow.
I have 2 questions. So, penis pump in the balls. Mm-hmm. Do you press once, or do you have to, like, pinch it multiple?
It's dynamic, yes. And it goes by degree. So, like, the more you pump, the harder it gets.
Wow.
So you can be somewhat soft. Like, you can go as far as you want. it gets way harder than any natural erection. I mean, to the point of extreme discomfort, even for my, like, I can get it to a point where then I have to stop and just go backwards because it's too uncomfortable. Puts too much pressure.
Okay, so my other question was the saline in your abdomen. Does it get switched out? Does it stay clean? Like,
well, salt water. That's the nature of it. It doesn't. It's sterile or it's clean all the time.
Okay.
You don't have to.
It's just touching the tubes and coming back.
Yeah,
right?
that's all. Yeah, it's a closed circuit. It's never. If any part of this were to come into contact with any other part of my body, that would be a serious issue. But what happens? Also, basic anatomy lesson. There are many prosthetic devices, and what you hope for, there is always a chance of this going awry. But if you put something in your body, something foreign, your body's immune response to it is to wall it off.
Yeah.
You create scar tissue around it. Create what's called a capsule.
Yeah.
If this isn't a perfect process, then bacteria gets in, and then it becomes infected, and then you have a serious issue.
Yeah.
You have the potential for sepsis, and you got to remove it. But if everything goes according to plan, scar tissue walls it off, everything's contained, everything functions.
Yeah. And how long ago did you have this procedure done?
Is that the chair?
Yes.
Okay.
no, Becca's farting.
Someone is, yeah. I first had this done when I was 28 or like 29. I lived with this all through my 20s.
Wow.
Now I will say, at the same time, I was able to find a forum where I met other men who had dealt with this. And what I mostly found was that men who had this condition really shied away from trying to date. Like they really, because they thought, I'm not going to expose myself like this. I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'm just, what's the point? I will give myself some sort of credit, maybe in a perverse way. I always went for it.
Yeah.
It never stopped me, even though, of course, I was filled with shame and it was incredibly frustrating. I was able to I did have sex. It's not like I never had sex until I had the implant, but I try to explain it in this, you have to relate it back to that, again, the tire with the pressure of like, everything had to go perfectly, where like it wasn't a spontaneous thing at all. Like I had to explain it all. I had to be like, all right, this is how it's got to go. I've got to work myself up, and then we got to go right to it. And then I could lose it any time, and I usually did. I got in there.
But you found people who were okay with it.
I did find people.
Women.
I found farm animals who are okay with it. No. I found tailpipes that were totally fine. No. I did the irony, I suppose, is that I was mostly lucky because I did have some experiences where, like when I was in college, I was trying to live like what you imagine college kids live like, and I was trying to participate in the hookup culture. And I never had an encounter. I never dealt with a woman who was truly scathing. I don't know. Maybe that could happen. Maybe some women are like that. They probably are out there. I probably wouldn't have even gotten to the point where I would have encountered that. There were women who would say things like, "Oh, sex with you is just too difficult."
That's horrible to say.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought when you told them this that you were lying, or that they could test it out to see if they could fix you.
Well, I think
they could have taken it personally.
Well, I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. And that's something that I always tried to wrap my mind around too, but that was something that I also internalized as a source of shame too, of thinking, not only do I feel bad, I'm making someone else feel bad because they can't help but interpret this as a sign that they're not even attractive, even though that's really not it. It really has nothing to do with it. But of course they're going to experience it that way.
Yeah.
So it's like a double sense of shame. Because also I am sensitive to how other people feel. I'm not just trying to get what I want.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking the whole time of like, not only do I not get what I want, they don't get what they want, but not just in that superficial sense of not getting penetrative sex, but they're not even being validated as attractive beings.
Yeah.
And so I was always really torn up about that. But despite all that, I guess I carry myself in such a way, or I communicate in such a way, or I'm the kind of person who not every single day or anything, but I was able to meet women who understood well enough and were patient enough and still wanted to be with me. But the trouble, especially in my early 20s, is that I was so consumed with self-hatred that I didn't believe it, or I still ended up pushing them away.
Yeah.
Because I didn't accept it myself, and I was always thinking about how, no, you don't really want this. There's no way. Like, you can... I was always thinking, like, you could just get this somewhere else so easily. And I didn't understand how, like, okay, well, then that doesn't mean that they want that. If it's so freely available, it doesn't make it worthwhile, just when you reduce it down to that. But because I felt so inadequate, I thought, there's no way that you want to put up with this.
Yeah.
So now that it works, right?
Yes. But before, I do also want to say, though, that I had a surgery at 29 and was fixed, and then my first device broke.
Oh. How long did you have the device for?
Just under 5 years. And that is not as long as they tell you should expect to have it working.
Yeah.
What's the expected?
So there is, year by year, there are two big numbers for this. They first will tell you that every single year, there is less than a 1% chance that your device will break. But then, up until about, it's like something over a 10 or 15 year mark.
Dang.
Wow.
And then it goes up. So you should expect to get at least 10 years.
Gotcha.
So you are using yours way too much.
I drove it into the ground. I was using that thing like an old lawnmower. Just pulling the ripcord way too often.
Okay, so now you had it replaced.
I did. It broke last fall.
Okay, so did they leave the other one in there, or how did that work?
Now, what happens there is it is a mechanical device.
Okay.
Like everything mechanical, at some point it will break.
Yeah.
And the more you use it, it's wear and tear. The more you drive your car, the more you gotta.
Yeah.
Things will happen to it.
You gotta do maintenance.
All right, you gotta do maintenance. You gotta replace it. You gotta replace parts. Yeah. When it breaks, though, you can leave it. Like if you just decided, I don't want to ever mess with this again. I'm never gonna have sex again.
Yeah.
You could just leave it. There would be nothing wrong with that. It's not gonna do anything. It's just gonna be in there.
There's not batteries.
It's not batteries. It's just gonna be in you, defunct. But you could do that.
Yeah.
Now the issue is, if you were to take it out and not replace it with anything, scar tissue would fill the space. So it's like a placeholder. So if you don't use it, it's just holding that space open. So it's just, whenever you want to replace it, you could do it as soon as you want, and I obviously wanted to get it done as quickly as I could, but you wouldn't have to. And like medically, nothing's going to happen. That space is just going to be open. You could take as long as you want to replace it.
My question is, when did you realize it had broken?
That's an interesting story. Now, what I've learned is that so most men who have this are older. And most of them are in marriages. Most, not all, and even most of the men that I talk to, because there was one forum in particular where I learned more about this, and I even met a few men who would tell me about their experiences. And the majority of them are older. The majority of them are over 50, really even over 60. And they're in like lifelong or long-term marriages. There are a few weird guys who are like, I don't know, they see prostitutes, or like they have weird old girlfriends or whatever.
You?
Like me. I see a lot of prostitutes now. Also, I'm broke. Really like low grade ones. I work in a coffee shop. No, they escort me. I forget, what was I talking about?
I'm sorry.
How did you realize it broke?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So mostly, two things almost. Like, most men are so old when they get it that they die before.
Oh my gosh.
Well, they die before they break before it does.
Oh, okay. Dang. So you hadn't known anyone that experienced it breaking?
Well, a few, but those that do, they tend to just be in established marriages where everything is very secure. It was secure anyway.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, was at a point in my life and I am, as of now, a single 35-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
I was single-ish then. I guess I don't know. We don't have to go into all those details right now. But I was dating a woman,
mm-hmm.
and we were at a stage, you know how things work these days, where people really like to push ambiguity as far as it can go. Nobody wants to define anything too
mm-hmm.
early. People want to
Talk.
rationalize. Yeah, they want to rationalize keeping their options open,
mm-hmm.
even if they're not. And it's not even always the case that like, oh, I am sleeping with 10 different people. But it's an idea of, well, but what if I want to?
Mm-hmm.
What if something comes along? I don't want to be held down. Because like most people aren't really fucking that much.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea of like, well, now I can't. That makes people really squeamish and nervous. So yeah, I've been going through the same thing myself, where I was dating a woman and we had several very intense experiences, at least emotionally. And it's always difficult to gauge how the other person feels, but I had a pretty good idea that like we were really getting along well, and there was very strong chemistry. We were seeing each other consistently, but there hadn't been, and there's no external structure anymore to say that like when you do this, that means this is what you are now. So everyone's trying to figure it out for themselves, negotiate it, get exactly what they want, and also not feel responsible for anyone else. But I was dating a woman. Things were going really well. I was living at home in Bloomington at the time, coming up to Indy every weekend to see her. Everything was going well. She didn't know I had this.
So you were just doing it.
We were doing it, and that's another thing about this. It is all internal,
mm-hmm.
and just by look, there's no way to know. There's nothing physically in either the flaccid or erect state that you would observe that would clue you in to something being different.
Yeah,
it
amazing.
Looks completely normal.
Okay.
Except for maybe the only thing, I don't know, like I said, in a flaccid state, you're a little bit bigger, but that could be normal too.
Yeah.
So you guys had already done it.
We've done it several times.
Okay.
Like over a period of a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And you would find out, the main way you would know is if you felt the balls. Because you would feel a hard pump in there. Like, that's the only place where, I mean, if you're feeling the hardened cylinders in the shaft, that's what you expect to feel. That just feels like a normal, because it's still all the tissue around it, skin around it, all the nerves are preserved. Like, it feels totally normal for me. But but as a woman or a man or farm animal or whatever you are, you would feel like on the shaft, that would feel totally normal. But if you grab the balls and you're used to, it's like, balls are, they're not really soft or hard. They're kind of, they're not hard. They're not really soft. I've never really thought about what, it's like neither a gas nor a liquid. It's a new
it's a
component.
It's its own thing.
Yeah, it is. It's, yeah. But anyway, the point being, actual testicles have a certain firmness.
Yeah.
And the pump is hard.
Gotcha.
Like, it feels like a piece of like metal.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So if you felt that, you would know something is up here. The woman I was with in particular never touched my balls.
Yeah.
But we don't have to get into that, but she didn't really give me a lot of attention in that way. But so I never.
So she didn't squeeze them and break it.
She didn't squeeze them and do anything. And so, and yeah, I'm like, there are very smooth ways to activate the device, and in the course of foreplay, and I'm a pretty intuitive, smooth person for the most part too, despite my condition. So
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. She didn't know I had it. And my policy in general is like, I don't lead with that information.
Yeah.
It's not like, if I meet a woman and things are moving really fast into the bedroom, I'm not going to like pump the brake and be like, hold up.
It's like
You got to know that this is what I have.
Yeah.
So it's like if you had AIDS.
It's just like how I'd have AIDS. We're like, maybe this won't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Maybe she won't even get it. There's like only a certain percentage chance that I'll even pass it along. So roll a dice on this.
All right.
By the way, I have AIDS. You probably don't have it though. No.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. But yeah, my policy is, I'm not going to lead with that information.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Not necessary.
I'm also not going to go to weird lengths to hide it.
Mhm.
You know, like if it comes up, if she does grab my balls or like has a question like, what is that? I'm not going to get weird about denying it.
Yeah.
I'll tell her. But I'm not just going to, like wear a t-shirt
Mhm.
about how like, before you have sex with me, you must know that.
Yeah.
But
This
at the same
guy.
time, if things get more serious,
Mhm.
at some point, if she doesn't know, I will bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just try to take that to my grave
Yeah.
with her. So we were at about the point where it hadn't come up naturally. She hadn't discovered it herself.
Mhm.
I was about ready to tell her. Like, it wasn't a shame thing. It's just, I don't need to go into it right away.
Yeah.
But I'm coming up to her place, to her apartment. I park my car outside her apartment. And this is also something that might seem a little bit strange, but one of the ways that you do almost like kind of make it seem more natural, like, and it is by degree, so there's a totally flaccid state, but you pump it up a little bit. So I give myself a couple of like pre-pumps.
Like pre-gaming.
Yeah, a little bit. Not so to where I'm like rigid walking in, but just so that I then have fewer pumps later.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like a little bit of preparation. But when I do that, I park my car right outside her apartment. I reach down to do that, and I press on the pump, and it stays deflated. Because normally it springs back. Normally the way it's like it pumps, and then you just keep pressing, like it reinflates.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it just stayed compressed, like it just flattened.
And then you had
Yeah.
a heart attack.
I really did. It's a very difficult experience. It's like almost, it's out of body. It's like you see yourself, it's like you start floating and swirling above yourself, and the gravity of what is happening, because it's, and I always go back to this. It's the sense that like everything in the world is the same.
Mhm.
There's still like, sun is shining, squirrels are playing, cars are driving down the street. But now my whole reality is irreparably changed. I've got something really serious to deal with, and I wasn't prepared for it.
Mhm.
I really wasn't. I was not. Part of the freedom that this gave me, every single day I was thinking like, I'm deficient, I'm inadequate, every woman I meet, I'm going to have to go through this. It's not really what she wants.
Yeah.
She's used to this, that, and the other, and it's not me, and she's going to be disappointed. It was weighing on me all the time. Then I was freed of that, but I almost went too far in a way, but it's very understandable to where I wasn't thinking about the fact that, okay, someday I'm going to have to deal with this.
Yeah.
It's not like I am free of it, but there is still a horizon there where I'm going to have to deal with this again. But I had really put it out of my mind.
You didn't think you were going to have to deal with it that fast.
I really didn't. And some of it was based on the statistics that I had of like,
Yeah.
I have more time.
Mhm.
In the back of my mind, I know I'm going to have to deal with it again, but I'm thinking I've got more time. And I guess best case scenario, it happens when like I'm at home alone and I have time to just process it there. But I'm supposed to meet this woman, like I'm supposed to be at her door.
Mhm.
And I suddenly realize that this has happened. So I have to tell her I have it, and I have to tell her it's broken.
Mhm.
So I'm reeling. I mean, it's like, it's a dizzying experience.
Mhm.
I want to puke. What I thought of, I will tell you, honestly, I thought of disappearing right there. That was a real impulse. I thought of just taking off and not saying anything.
Yeah.
My rationale being, all right, what if I disappear, then I'm just an asshole.
Yeah.
Then I save face.
Mhm.
Then it actually, in a way, she can just file that under, another asshole man. Not that I didn't necessarily know that she had a ton of experiences with that, but I still figure that's a little bit more typical than what I'm about to hit her with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just like, okay, he actually turned out to be a jerk.
Mhm.
Oh well, move on. And then she doesn't have to deal with her own response to that. But I go in there and I explain everything to her.
That was good of you.
How does she take it?
Well, it's funny because initially, and I think this is how it went. when I told her, and I went into as much detail as I could, initially I think I could have told her anything then. Like I could have told her, like, I just broke my leg outside. Or, like, I just found out I have a heart condition and I have to go into this really extensive therapy. And it was more of like an all-purpose, just like, oh, are you okay? Let me comfort you right now. So there was at least a little bit of that. And I spent the night, and I'm still thinking the whole time, like, I got to come up with a game plan. I got to find a doctor. You know, I've got a million things on my mind. The next day, though, I spent the night. She went to work. I hung around. I'm calling people. I'm calling doctors and figuring things out. But then I meet with her again. And by then, even, just that next day, she had gone to work. I was talking to her about, like, hey, I'm actually still interested in staying with you or continuing to see where this goes. It can be fixed. It might take a couple months. I got to figure it out, but I still want to do this. Things have definitely changed. I think it was starting to sink in for her that she just did not want to deal with it.
Dang.
Well, at least it kind of showed, like, what was really important to her.
And where her intentions lied, yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know for sure, but I even then I thought, like, I don't think it's just that, well, I need to have sex right away. But there is something deeper to it as well. I'm not trying to absolve this person of all responsibility. Like,
right.
I'm not saying that, like, well, they just couldn't stand the idea of not having sex for even like a month, but just the fact that they couldn't support someone. Yeah, it was more that. Yeah. Like, I really don't think it's just, well, I have to have sex right away. Yeah. So no. But more of just like, I can't help you with anything. I can't emotionally support you through anything difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear a lot more, but I know my battery is dying, and I guess if you had like one quick takeaway or advice for somebody who was maybe experiencing something like this, like, what would it be?
My advice is to seek out an actual specialist. Not just a general urologist, but someone who specializes in sexual medicine.
And then also, what would your advice be to a woman who has to...
My advice is, and again, there are depths of female psychology that I can never reach.
That is true.
I'll put it that way. But to the extent that I can fathom this, please understand that if there's a man who's dealing with this, and he wants to be with you, it is not a sign of his lack of attraction. It's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. Like, this is an organic physiological thing that happens. I mean, I guess, like, sure. I mean, there probably are cases where, like,
it might be the porn thing.
It could be the porn thing, and it could be a sign, but don't automatically assume that. Like, be communicative, figure it out, and take him, you know, if that's what he tells you, like, he's going to know his own body. Trust him. If he says, it's not you, like, this is something that's happening to me, like, it is real. I know from the inside.
Because it sounds like blaming yourself just makes the person feel worse.
Right. It makes things worse. So please don't do that. If you're dealing with a dumbass who's, like, out of touch with himself and actually doesn't like you, but is trying to force something weird, you know, then get out of that.
Yeah.
But
still, like, you know, see the signs.
Sure.
But
if you have that communication, if you have that emotional bond, but he is having this issue, please trust that, it's not just this lack of passion or lack of attraction. There are, most of the time, there is a genuine physiological basis for it. It's not reflective of his desire for you. And there are solutions as well.
Yeah.
If he wants to seek them out. I mean, many men they do get really closed off. And that is where men do fail. Like, there's that sense of shame can be so strong that it does almost lead to that same sense of distance of just, I don't even want to put myself in that position to where I can be embarrassed.
Yeah.
And that can start to feel for a woman like, oh, he doesn't desire me.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. Well, I guess we should go kind of switch gears. Thank you for talking about that.
Yes.
Also, So Caleb wrote a book.
I did write a book.
I was one of the first to buy it, and he signed my copy.
I remember doing that.
I am a few pages in.
Jade's not a reader.
No.
I'm not a reader, but I did want to support my friend. So you should just quickly pitch your book. Tell us what it's about.
Okay, my book is called The Neighbor. It is a work of fiction. I characterize it as Midwestern Gothic. So I'm heavily influenced by William Faulkner
Mm-hmm.
and like Cormac McCarthy. So I like to write. I like my stories very gritty and descriptive
Mm-hmm.
and graphic, and Gothic stories are often set in the South. Like it's associated together very closely, like Southern Gothic. Like that's William Faulkner. But I wanted to do the same kind of story with the same kind of language set in the Midwest. That's what I know. That's where I grew up. I wanted to bring that setting into a literary format.
Mm-hmm.
The Neighbor it is loosely based on my experience living in Fountain Square.
Oh.
I lived between two drug dealers for 3 years, and one dealer was murdered in his home.
Oh.
Not while I was there, either in my house or his. I'm glad they got the address right.
That could have been bad for
That
you.
could have been bad for me. But I saw a lot of people moving in and out. I saw a lot of sordid, shady characters.
Mm-hmm.
My observations went into the story. It's about a dishwasher, a lower class, working class, uneducated man living in this Rust Belt, dilapidated urban environment. He moves next door to a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
He becomes friends with him, but it's an ambivalent relationship where he also resents him because he's making money selling drugs while this guy's barely scraping by, washing dishes. He's got a wife. He's married to a woman. They get hooked on drugs. Their life deteriorates. He eventually comes up with a plan to rob this drug dealer. That robbery goes awry. He kills him.
Are you telling the whole book?
No, this is just this. And then he takes off.
Okay.
And then him when he becomes a fugitive, that's the story. Him then running from this murder.
Dang.
Okay. Well, you didn't give us too many spoilers, so that's good.
No spoilers, really.
I wanted you to read maybe something, but how much were you going to read? Or did you want to do that?
I could read something very short. I could read a super short excerpt.
Okay.
I also write short stories.
Okay.
I
write
Let's hear
fiction.
that.
I write short stories. I write nonfiction. I also write a lot about my actual experience.
Okay.
I get pretty explicit.
Okay.
But I will read a very short excerpt from a short story that I have online on my
Okay.
website, which is middleamericanliterature.wordpress.com.
Yes, and we will put you can start getting that out. We will put the link. Do you want the Amazon link to this on the YouTube video?
Sure.
Okay, we'll put the Amazon link to his book.
And I'm assuming you could just buy that if you online as well, like how through books on your iPhone or iPad, right?
I'm not
I'm
sure.
assuming,
Is it just
right?
through Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Kindle.
No, you can do... Well, on Amazon, you can...
Do Kindle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see. Okay. All right. So there's that. Are you ready?
Yes. So this is a short story on my website called The Man Who Could Not Watch Television. It's
Okay.
about a man who's diagnosed with a condition where every time he looks at a screen, he vomits. So he has to live his whole life without ever watching TV or using a phone or a tablet or anything like that.
If you want to get really close and talk like this, that might help for the effect.
So
We'll snap.
this is a very...
I can't do that.
That wasn't me. This is a very short excerpt.
Okay.
Let me find it. Okay.
Gotta set us.
Yes,
in
the man who can't watch television, his name is Bernard. So this is picking up in the middle of the story.
Okay.
Bernard had his first romance the summer of his senior year. The girl had long blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes. They were both shy and had talked all year without touching. One night she invited him over for a swim after her parents had gone to sleep. The water shimmered in the moonlight and the pool pump hummed and crickets chirped. They faced each other in the gently rocking pool. The pupils of her eyes grew wide and gleamed like black gems, drew him into her. The world withdrew, and it was just them. They kissed and held each other in the water until their skin shriveled. The rest of the summer was theirs, and they started their senior year as a couple. But she graduated early and went to a prestigious school on the coast. She called less and less, and then broke up with him over text, and his brain burned with images of what she must be doing with other young men. His dad put a hand on his shoulder and said it would get better, and that he would find someone else. But who really understands women anyway? Bernard fell into bed and cried into his pillow on lambent evenings. He graduated and went to veterinary school, though he stayed at home to save money. On afternoons and evenings, when everyone was watching TV or playing on their phones, he would walk around or look out the window and let his memories and feelings glide over each other. He looked into the world and looked into himself, and he could not tell where one ended and the other began. Sometimes it was like floating, and sometimes it was like sinking. He heard people laughing and talking about what they had seen. People thought he was quiet. When in mixed company, he smiled and nodded his head and said he had heard of the shows, had seen an episode or two. His dad made a visual media study guide for him, described the popular programs and characters, and wrote plot outlines in a notebook. No one knew by looking at him that he had never watched a show or a movie. He appeared as a normal man, a man who, like any other, spent countless nights letting waves of blue light wash over him. While waiting in offices or sitting on park benches or walking down the street, he did stand out because he did not stare at his crotch or run into fire hydrants and street signs while texting his friends. But because everyone else had their heads down, no one noticed him.
That was a great
Wow.
excerpt.
Thank you.
Okay, now I want to read your book.
It turns out, yeah, you would actually...
It turns out he can write.
It doesn't seem right because of our conversations that happen at the coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be wondering, how did I find all of this out about Caleb? It's just through our boredom at work.
That's right.
Mhm.
See, we work in the service industry where we are ground down into robotic movements.
Yes.
And we do the same thing every day and have to pretend to be happy to see people, and we need an escape.
That's right. So we talk to each other.
Yes.
But I think that really is it as far as, I mean, there's so much more you could probably tell. But maybe you can come back on.
Yeah, maybe we could do a part 2 or something.
We could. I have
Yeah.
much more.
Okay.
Yeah, you have really interesting stories for sure.
Well, I guess we need to read our misconnection from Craigslist.
Yes.
So Becca can do the honors for that.
Okay. It's in New Jersey.
Can you read it in a Jersey accent?
I don't have good accents. Everything comes out British.
I can do it.
There you go.
I've never read this before. Handyman for women. Sussex Co. I don't know if this is really good.
I think you're doing great.
A husband not doing enough? Send me a note. I will small repairs to the home. Helping you? Whatever he doesn't pay attention to, I will. Hurry. Set up an appointment today. Older over 60 housewives. Send a note today. Was that good?
That was great.
That was good.
Well, I mean,
So you have to be 60 or older
that was a
Yeah.
good
to
one.
be with this guy. But he's offering handy services only to housewives.
Mhm.
So he clearly likes the married
You
ones.
like some dusty.
Wow. I might move to New Jersey.
Do you need a handyman?
You have plenty of time.
Yeah. All right. Well, a sincere thank you to Caleb.
Yes, thank
Go
you.
buy his book now.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm good for now.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, it's Becca.
Hey, it's Maddie.
Thank you so much for listening to the Basic Bee podcast.
Follow us on the gram at basicbpod.
And join our private Facebook group linked in the episode notes.
Be sure to catch our next episode and leave us a nice review.
Until then, stay basic.
Bye, bees.